Friends on YouTube. This story is about the hidden rituals performed by the Mayan. The son of the Mayan emperor had been raised apart from the other children from a young age. His education included science, astronomy, art, mathematics, war strategies, and a very special mystical class carried out by the high priest. Please support us by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Secrets of the Mayans. In the humid, emerald heart of the Petan jungle, where the stone pyramids of the Maya reach toward the heavens like the fingers of a buried god, the city of Zulha breathed with a rhythm that was not entirely human. This was the seat of Emperor Kilikhtoli, a man whose crown of Quetzal feathers masked a mind as cold and calculating as the stars he mapped. But the true heart of Zulhar did not beat in the royal court. It beat in the secluded Jade Tower, where the Prince Chanyopat had lived in isolation since the day of his first tooth filing. Chanyopat was a prisoner of destiny. While the sons of nobles practiced the ball game and learned to hunt the jaguar, the prince was subjected to a rigorous, neurocetic education. He mastered the base 20 mathematics of the cosmos, the brushstrokes of the sacred codices, and the complex geometry of war. However, the true core of his being was forged in the midnight hours by the high priest, Mayans. Mayans was a figure of whispers, a man whose skin was tattooed with the movements of Venus and whose eyes seemed to see through the very flesh of men. Every lunar cycle, in the lightless depths beneath the pyramids, the priest would prepare a viscous, violet brew. It was a concoction of sacred fungi, the venom of a blue-bellied toad, and the nectar of the extanton flower that grew only in the shadow of graves. "Drink, my prince," Mayans would hiss, his voice like the rustle of dry maize. "To rule the stone, you must first become the wind." As Chanyopat drank, the walls of the cavern would dissolve. The prince's consciousness was cast into the Shibalba, the underworld, and beyond into the shimmering lattice of other dimensions. In these terrifying, luminous realities, the instruction of the elements took place. He did not just study nature, he translated it. He learned that rain was a celestial vibration, that earthquakes were the settling of the great turtle's bones, and that lightning was the spear thought of the gods. The physical side effects of this education were uncanny. By his 20th year, Chanyopa had become a phantom in the palace. His servants whispered in terror as they watched him walk across the limestone floors, his feet hovering a hair's breadth above the dust. Most chilling was his mastery of phase shifting. In moments of deep focus, his body would shimmer like a heat mirage, allowing him to walk directly through the solid obsidian and limestone walls of the Jade Tower, leaving no mark but a faint scent of ozone. The drama began on the day of Chanyopat's 21st birthday. Emperor Kilikhtoli declared that the prince was finally ready to take command of the Sunjaguar province, a strategic territory that controlled the trade routes and the vital obsidian mines. But within the council, a serpent lay coiled. General Khan, a battle-scarred veteran who believed that a king should be forged in blood, not in smoke and visions, saw the prince's elevation as an insult to the army. "The boy is a ghost," Khan muttered to his captains in the dark. "He knows the language of the rain, but does he know the weight of a We need a warrior, not a dreamer who floats over the mud." General Khan struck an unholy alliance with the Itza rebels from the northern lowlands. The plan was a masterpiece of treachery. The prince's inaugural procession would be ambushed at the serpent's throat, a narrow canyon where the jungle canopy was so thick it turned day into night. The morning of the departure was heavy with the scent of impending storm. As the royal litter wound its way through the canyon, the silence was shattered by a cacophony of conch shells and the screams of 1,000 hidden warriors. Arrows tipped with poisoned flint rained down like a lethal harvest. General Khan, leading the vanguard, intentionally pulled the heavy infantry back, leaving Chanyopat's inner circle exposed to the slaughter. It was here that the dynamism of the prince's training exploded into reality. Chanyopat stepped from his litter, not with a weapon, but with his eyes wide and glowing with a subatomic light. He did not run. He closed his eyes and whispered to the air. Suddenly, the humidity of the jungle condensed with impossible speed. A localized monsoon erupted, a wall of water so dense it knocked the rebel archers from the cliffs. When the Itza warriors charged with their obsidian clubs, Chanyopa performed the unthinkable. He didn't block. He simply ceased to be solid. The clubs passed through his chest as if he were made of smoke. With a calm, rhythmic movement, he reached out and touched the stone walls of the canyon. He didn't push the stone, he convinced it to move. The earth groaned as a localized tremor sent a cascade of boulders down upon the ambushers, sparing only those who wore the insignia of the palace. In the chaos, General Khan saw his coup slipping away. He lunged at the prince with a ceremonial dagger, screaming a curse. Chanyopa churned, but he did not strike back. Instead, he stepped into the canyon wall. Khan's blade struck the hard limestone, and as the general recoiled, the prince's hand reached out of the solid rock behind him. The twist, however, was far darker than Khan's ambition. From the ridge above, High Priest Milik Tabel appeared, his face twisted in a ritualistic ecstasy. He began to chant a forbidden frequency. The special brew had not just been an education. It was a tether. Milik Tabel had been using Chanyopat as a battery, storing the energy of the dimensions within the boy's very cells to perform a ritual of cosmic ascension. The priest wanted to tear open a permanent rift between the worlds, and Chanyopat was the key. The general was a distraction. Milik Tabel roared over the thunder. Khan wanted a throne, but I want the stars. Give me the energy I planted in you. The prince felt his soul being pulled apart. The lightning he had learned to understand began to arc from his eyes, threatening to incinerate everything in the canyon. It was a moment of supreme tension. The prince was a conduit for a power he could no longer contain. But Chanyopat's education in mathematics and strategy served him better than the priest had anticipated. He realized that if he was a bridge, he could choose which way the traffic flowed. Instead of resisting the drain, he accelerated it, but he focused the energy into the tectonic fault line he had sensed beneath the canyon during his meditations. The earth didn't just shake, it reorganized. The canyon floor collapsed into a massive cenote, a deep pool of sacred water. The surge of energy backfired, traveling up the priest's own spiritual tether. Milik Tabel screamed as he was pulled into the very other world he had tried to colonize, his body dissolving into a shower of Quetzal-colored sparks. General Khan, seeing the divine wrath, fell to his knees, his mind shattered by the sight of a man who could command the very bones of the world. Chanyopa emerged from the dust, his feet finally touching the ground, the golden glow fading from his skin. He was no longer just a prince of visions. He was a king of reality. He returned to Zulha not to rule through fear or hallucinogens, but with a profound understanding that the language of nature is the language of balance. Under his reign, the Maya did not just survive, they harmonized with the stars.